doctor in the world. The best pain doctor looks like the best of anything in the world. It's the person who approaches the problem, the patient, without any ideology or any prejudice whatsoever. It is the person who knows the most and who has the greatest wisdom and understands the incredible variety among the patients and human beings you deal with, and has no knee-jerk preference that says, well, I'm one who does opioids. Well, I'm one who doesn't do opioids. Well, I'm one who, does alternative medicine until the patient's screaming in pain, and then I'll do the opioids. Well, I'm one, and I don't do... What I encounter everywhere is this prejudice. This inability. I mean, the best teachers are ones who are wise, but they think about what each student needs for themselves. And the only ideology is the ideology of human rights and compassion and decency. And in your field, the removal of pain, the alleviation of pain, the enabling of people, no matter what it takes. Right? There are people in my world, in the medical marijuana world, and they go, marijuana is so much superior to those opioid medications, doctors giving morphine, opiates, all these other things. And there's a way in which they're right and a way in which they're wrong. Because nobody's ever overdosed and died from marijuana, no matter how much they took, right? But that is not the case of the opioid, right? The risks, the dangers, the drug interactions, what have you. And marijuana has all sorts of properties, many of which are being understood better and better and better. But what I tell my allies in the medical marijuana area is shut the hell up. Because quite frankly, all the folks dealing with opioid medications are dealing with enough shit from the DEA and the drug enforcement and everybody else. I mean, they are fighting a battle to try to treat people decently in the face of a drug war context. Like people trying to teach forbidden subjects in a totalitarian society, right? Trying to do the right thing. And oftentimes their medications are going to work better than your medication. Don't put the holy herb on a pedestal and say this is the drug that will solve all problems. It may be a disrespected and underappreciated drug, but don't do the opposite. But I have to say the same thing to you. I mean, there is this wide body of evidence now about marijuana's medical benefits in dealing with nausea and pain and spasms and all sorts of other things. Huge body of evidence. And it's not just anecdotal evidence. It's not just the large numbers of people who say, you know, doc, somehow I hadn't gotten high in years, and then I smoked the joints for the first time in 5 years, and all of a sudden those symptoms I've been having, I didn't feel them for a while. I mean, it's not just the zillions of anecdotes that you hear like that, but it's good research happening in the pharmaceutical world, people who are going to win major awards for research on the cannabinoids, Raphael Meshulam in Israel, who's a leading figure globally on this stuff, the work with Donald Abrams working with AIDS, the University of California, San Diego with its own research program on medical value, and notwithstanding all the efforts of NIDA and the U.S. government to restrict research and to make it more difficult, to require people to jump through, but I cannot understand, or one legitimate basis, for any one of you here not to be recommending marijuana if, in fact, that would be beneficial to your patient. There is no legitimate reason. Let's be clear about this. First of all, for those of you who are worried about the consequences of the law enforcement system, right after we won that 1996 medical marijuana initiative in California, which I did not draft, local activists drafted, is much more wide open than what you have here in Montana or the other states where we drafted them much more tightly. But I'll tell you something. A month later, the drug czar, the head of Health and Human Services, Donna Shalala, the head of National Drug Abuse, all got up at a press conference and they said, we're going to go after the doctors and patients who talk about marijuana as medicine. And we joined with the ACLU, Drug Policy Alliance, and ACLU. We got together and we took them straight to court. And we said, you are violating the First Amendment rights of doctors and patients. And we got a temporary restraining order and a preliminary injunction, and we beat them in federal court, we beat them in appeals court, and they finally gave up. We won your First Amendment right to talk about any medication that you think is appropriate with your patient. There is no risk under federal law in your talking about this issue with it, and there is no risk in your writing in a record, I have reason to believe, based upon my consultation and my examination of the patient, that marijuana could be medically beneficial in this case. There is no basis in law, and you can hold up this case. I'll tell you something else. Shortly after that, my organization, the ACLU, each received a check for about $350,000 from the drug czar's office, reimbursing us for attorney's fees in our case. That was, I will tell you, the sweetest contribution I ever made. But we did win that right. So maybe you're worried about the scuttlebutt or what other people are going to say, but if your your bottom line is about helping your patients and serving your patients, then you do not have a right to be ignorant of that evidence. And you do not have a right to say, I don't do that. And if you work in some kind of healthcare program or hospital system that says that requires that pain patients be tested for drugs, not for their own, so that you can prescribe, so to punish people, if you work in a program that says that we will take people off their pain meds, whether it's addiction program or pain drug, if they test positive for marijuana or even some other drug, that is malpractice as far as I'm concerned. There is no legitimate basis for taking people off their medication if they happen to be using marijuana as well. And what you know is that there are no medical risks associated, because one of the fortunate things about cannabis is that you cannot overdose no matter what you combine it with. You may get sick, dizzy, nauseous, but you are not going to die from that stuff. Combine the opioids with other things, the tranquilizers, booze, you may, but you are not. There is no basis not to include this. And given the wide base of evidence that is out there, there is no basis whatsoever. I will also, you got it, give me 1 minute left.